All right, let's get that audio check real quick. About almost 600 people in the chat. You guys know we'll have 1,000 really quick. So we have special guests today. We were supposed to be doing a show yesterday, but I apparently don't know how to spell people's names and emails because I messed up not once but twice. And the entire time that I'm freestyling a live show yesterday for you, he's watching, probably stressed the F out that he can't get in. So listen, you guys started dropping his name in the chat about 7 months ago, but I really wasn't doing a lot of podcasts. I was still trying to get some of my data sets out. And once we cleared the air on that and I started doing I announced the podcast, his name came up several more times. So he's here today. And Virginia Beach next week, you already know, it's going to be the very first meetup that I've done that we are not going to record it for YouTube, at least the visuals, so you can see people's faces. It's going to have to be a unanimous decision at the meetup if they're going to allow me to record audio. If they allow me to record audio, because you already know we're going to get really personal on this meetup. We have a lot of things to discuss, and people don't like to air out everything to the public. So you guys are going to hear it, and I'll put a whole bunch of video and I'll put a bunch of a bunch of images with it. You guys know I got tens of thousands of images you still haven't seen. I can put a nice video together if it's decided at Virginia Beach that the participants are cool with being recorded, but we're not going to show them. We're just not going to record. We're not going to do a video. So anyway, other than that, I got a lot of other announcements, but they can wait to the end of the video. I'm going to go ahead and bring our guest in because he's waited this long. And I know some people in the chat said that he's an astrologer, but I kind of looked him up and he's a lot more than that. He's had his hand in the mix for quite a while on a wide diversity of topics. So astrologer is going to have to be a qualification. It's not going to be what really describes this man. Let's introduce Jeff Harman in. How you doing, Jeff?
Hey, pretty good, Jason. Thanks for having me on.
Man, you got really good audio. I'm kind of jealous. What are you using?
Well, that's how I came to Los Angeles. I actually modify microphones. I put silver wire in them and I put polystyrene capacitors and all kinds of stuff. In fact, I did a custom microphone for George Carlin about 25, 30 years ago. He loved it. And I actually got to record George in the studio. I loved it. It was probably one of my most amazing experiences recording George Carlin. I thought, wow.
George Carlin is where I got a lot of my sense of humor. I like George.
Loved him. Yeah.
So, I understand that we can get to the astrology in a little while, but I understand that in the course of your work, I just want to clear the air from the very beginning. It's you're not somebody that is typically interviewed in these type of venues. I mean, we all have very unique backgrounds, those of us that are out there, putting our stuff public. But I noticed that you had done government work. You had done work at you had done some like contract work for corporations and stuff. What kind of field what's your background? What kind of field led you to go into astrology so hardcore?
Well, that's interesting. You put it that way. Well, I actually started out a really unusual childhood. I had a lot of astral travel, a lot of different experiences with paranormal and various things. And my mother was always really encouraging me to get into music and science, and I did. In fact, by the time I think I was 8 years old, you could put a sheet of music in front of me and play it. I can't even do that now, but a lot of fun. And then in the 70s,
are you talking about pre-puberty?
Yeah, pre-puberty.
I'm being serious because there are many children that have very unique abilities. And they can tap into the field and they have these paranormal experiences and they interact with things that we swear are not there. And yet puberty kills them.
It does, and it's interesting you mentioned that because at 13 years old, all your ancient cultures knew that a spirit or an abur would join the soul right at 13. And all of us can admit, that's also when puberty comes in. But the ancient Vedantic priests and, Tibetan lamas, they all knew at 13, that was when not only puberty came in, but you had spiritual forces that joined the soul at that juncture forward. And yeah, pre-puberty, I had a lot of stuff going on. I was doing astral travel. I remember I was a little kid and I had a guinea pig die. And I remember it, I was dreaming it exactly the way it was. And I ran down the stairs. I was probably only 5, 6 years old. And that guinea pig was laying exactly the way I saw it. And I told my mother, I said, I can't believe this. I just dreamed this. And she says, no, you astral traveled. You were out of your body by silver cord and you were seeing this. This is such an interesting topic too, because I have a lot of clients who are psychiatrists and doctors, and I'm hearing more and more and more how the pineal gland, which is behind the third eye chakra, is getting more and more blocked with the fluorides in the water, the fluorides in the toothpaste, the chemtrails in the sky, the food additives, the sprays. They're trying to dumb us down.
5G radiation.
You got it.
It's all blocking it. Yeah.
It's blocking the pineal gland, and that's what they want. They want obedient, stupid people so they can control them. Not to get conspiratorial here, but that does seem to be a pervasive thing with the demonic forces that have always been on this earth, as well as the divine forces. But yeah, that's how I got started. And then my mother got me into astrology. My dad was a really tough guy. He still is, actually. And he had a logging company and very much into semis and trucks. I mean, at 13 years old, I was driving semis and logging trucks and running logging jammers. So my mother comes along in the mid 70s with astrology, right? And she was pegging my girlfriends to the T, because I was starting to drive then in the mid 70s. And she said, Jeffrey, that girl's this way or that way. And I'm saying, come on, how do you know? And she said, well, I got their birth charts. And she says, what do you mean you got their birth charts? I said, I said that to her. And she said, well, I can tell they're this way or that way. And I said, come on, that stuff, does it really work? And she says, you better check it out before you knock it. And I did. And that really opened up an amazing journey for me in spirituality. And then I was always a musician too. And I started a recording studio in the late 70s, and I started in an attic. And then I ended up doing a full-blown recording studio. And I did a lot of acoustical work and forensics work. And that's what brought me out here to the land of the fruits and nuts, California. Was in the early 80s, I was doing modifications for recording studios. And I would modify microphones and mic preamps and all that. Really enjoyed it. Had a lot of fun, did acoustical designs. And astrology was always with me, but more than astrology. And I appreciate, Jason, you mentioning that, because I always kind of am the reluctant astrologer. I love studying mysteries. And that's why I like being on your show here. The mysteries is what it's all about. And what's interesting to me is where astrology fits in that. Most astrologers, not to knock there's a lot of great ones out there, but they spend too much time on astrology alone without looking at the full expansive of who the heck are we? What are we doing here? And, I was really blessed in the 80s to be hired by a lot of religious organizations. I was hired by some theologians out of Rome. I actually worked with Mother Teresa of Calcutta. And think about that. I work with Mother Teresa and George Carlin. Wow. Talk about two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Hey, you know what they say, 6 degrees.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I had a lot of fun, and I was doing so much work with these theologians from Rome. They would hire me to do filming, 16 millimeter beta cam, and audio recordings of all these theologians coming in from all over the world. And I really got to sit back and watch some really great minds talk about different viewpoints of religions and spirituality and consciousness. And then I'd go back to the studio, and I was always studying astrology in the background. And I really got heavy into astrology, probably in the mid to the late 80s. That's when it really kicked in for me. And it's been a fun journey. And, again, I only look at astrology as one set of parameters that we can look at energies coming at us, because the world is a lot different than the history books tell us. And again,
Right?
I love your intro with all those books, my friend. I love books. I mean, you can't
Oh
see
yeah,
them all, but
got I've got I'm known on YouTube for having one of the most incredible libraries. This is just one of my studios. My other studio has even more, but these are my research books. A lot of them are scientific. Most of them are historical, chronological, archaeological. Over here I've got all these books here are books from the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, all the way up to the Civil War, but they only focus on chronology. These my other studio, that's what you saw pictures of. My intro was my other studio.
nice.
That studio's got like 850 books, and it's
Wow.
just all 1800s to 1902. And I've got an amazing library.
Absolutely love it. Because, and I noticed you had a lot of Tartarian stuff in there in your intro too. I love that. And I mean, they've been urinating down our back and telling us it's raining for a long, long time, and it's interesting how in the early 1900s, late 1800s, there was a lot of shaping and extraction in the history books of our past. And, that's one of the things I love. If you could rewrite history and see how much ancient astrology and spirituality was intertwined, and it was so prosecuted. And it's interesting. I love studying the history of ancient astrology. And I have to say, there's two places that really strike me, whether it's just because the documents are extant or because they were centers of great knowledge, is Egypt, Sumeria, Chaldea, no question about it, and the far east of India and Tibet and those whole areas. Absolutely stunning what came out of there, because they actually put it into writing. And we have, in the Madras Library, they say there's close to 20 or 30,000 manuscripts. Nobody knows how to understand them. They can't even read them.
Where is this located?
In Madras, India.
Oh, in India. Okay, yeah.
Madras Library.
We may never find, because when the Cultural Revolution took over China, the people of Tibet panicked. In all those monasteries, they knew of older cave systems that were further away from the actual monasteries. So
That's right.
There were so many places that were used, and all these things were hidden. But then the Chinese rounded up the monks and killed all of those they could. So anybody who knew where all these,
they murdered.
I wouldn't be surprised if 200 years from now they find libraries we've never heard of. They hit all those books. Yeah, it's crazy.
You're absolutely right, because they literally murdered hundreds of thousands of monks. They don't even know how many they murdered. And some of that knowledge is so advanced to the soul. Egypt, Tibet, India. There's many places, but they've just found a synagogue that was unearthed under the sand in Egypt, and literally over, I think, somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 years, they just blow the dust off it. All these documents are there. And it just really is contrasted to many of the things that they know. And again, Rome, it won't even hear.
Well, the synagogue in Egypt would not be a marvel to me, because I just recently did a series of posts on Twitter. I post data sets on Twitter for the public to see, to analyze, critique. And each post will be a data point, but the whole series is a data set where I'm showing, this is how I release my research all the time. And one of the things that I showed was contrary to popular belief. Most people are not aware, but northern Egypt, principally the Alexandrian districts, all the way along the North Libyan coast, was the highest concentration of Jews in world history. There was 250,000 of them living right there. After Rome had destroyed Jerusalem in AD 70, and then Rome destroyed Jerusalem again in the Bar Kokhba rebellion of AD 135, this is when synagogues started appearing everywhere outside of Jerusalem, all over Southern Europe, the Mediterranean world. So to find synagogues is not surprising to me, and I'm pretty sure that almost all of them have buried manuscripts.
Yeah, there's so much hidden knowledge in Egypt. Like the Book of the Dead. The more you go back in, of course, Budge was the first one who really kind of brought that to the West. He smuggled all the papyruses out of India. But what's interesting is they go back, and a lot of researchers are finding now that the Book of the Dead may be way, way older than they think. In fact, the first, through Fifth Dynasty, they're actually referring to some of those texts as ancient then, and that's just like 4,000 years
Well,
ago.
the Book of the Dead largely taken from we're talking about the Pyramid of Unas, a lot of the wall text and all that. One of the most ignored aspects of the Book of the Dead is that a 10th dynasty pharaoh left us a record talking about that the Book of Two Ways, the book of the Ankh. This is the original Book of the Dead. It's called the Book of Life. Somebody changed it to Book of the Dead, but it's a collection of all these ancient Egyptian writings. It was excavated from the desert of Egypt, even as early as the 10th dynasty. And this is from a pharaonic record. So the Book of it's timeless. It's ancient.
That's right.
We may be dealing with Budge. I've read Budge. I've studied Budge. Budge literally said in his commentaries that we are left with untranslatable hieroglyphs for which we have to guess their meaning.
That's right.
Which meant to Budge that when translating the wall text of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, we're dealing with words that are far older than the text.
That's right.
That's profound. We're talking about a belief system that antedates Egypt itself.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. And I think we're dealing with, again, when you look at the 26,700 or 900 years, no one knows exactly what it is, of the circle of our solar system around the central sun. And even if you're a flat earther, it still seems to have that cycle. The bottom line is the precessions shows that the earth has been destroyed many times and it rebuilds. Creation just keeps rebuilding. And there's some interesting forces here going on that are far deeper than what they're telling us. That's for damn sure.
So I agree. I'm a simulationist. So I'm never going to get trapped in, is the world a globe? Is the world a flat earth?
Right.
I buy into, I'm a student of P.D. Alspinski. I'm a student of Ishak Bentov, and they both published widely on the mathematical ratios and relationships of the architecture of our reality, and that this is a perceivable experience, not an actual experience.
Yeah.
So the cosmos and all that to me is a beautiful picture show in the sky, but I don't have to invest my faith in it because in the end, my paradigm doesn't matter. What I do day to day is the only thing that matters, and I'm always telling people on my channel that we can argue tooth and nail about the specifics of the world, but in the end, how I treat you and how you treat me is basically the measure that we're going to be measured by in the end. So everything else is conversation pieces.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, I would kind of have to agree with you on that viewpoint. I always say God created time so everything wouldn't happen at once. I really think we are in a simulation here, and that literally time is a total experiential construct. When we exit these bodies known as death, and this is, when you talk about the Book of the Dead and you talk about some of the ancient Vedantic texts, etc., it's all about the sojourn that we briefly stay here. It's interesting. The most profitable grossing movie was Avatar. I wonder why. That might have struck a chord in everyone's soul. Even though
you're talking to a community here. You're talking to a community here that is already convinced that Avatar was breaking off some real truth. And I'm not talking about the fantasy movie. I'm talking about the fact that in the Archaix research, historical research, we discuss vapor canopies and how they have appeared in history and changed everything, and then they disappear and change everything again. Because a vapor canopy is on the scientific table. There are 4 major scientific books about vapor canopies. I've done videos on them. So when you mention Avatar, I know a bunch of people perked up because Avatar is one of the movies we mentioned on the slow reveal that Hollywood is doing.
Yeah. Oh, you bet. Yeah. And Hollywood is an interesting place. There's actually a video of Harpo holding a cell phone back in the black and white silent days.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen it. And, a lot of people say, oh, that's fake. Well, I looked at it. I can't see that it's fake. I could be wrong. But yeah, they're always rolling stuff out in codes. And, the subliminals, I don't know, I'm sure you've heard of the Montauk stuff. And it's interesting. Preston Nichols had put out a book where they were doing subliminals way back in the 60s with the Beatles and programming people. They actually did an experiment where they put a hidden telephone number in the subliminals of a record, and the phone rang off the wall, and it was an unlisted number. Pretty wild.
Well, I mean, it just goes to show you it's the power of suggestion in the neutral field is going to come out somehow. So it's yeah, this is the things we discuss in Archaix a lot. We're always talking about how we affect the field. And
yep. That's right.
It's really interesting. What is your take on because I'm not trying to entrap you. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just gonna let you know off the jump that I do not push extraterrestrials. I don't push any of that. I believe 100% by virtue of my historical research that there is a technologically advanced civilization existing in our underworld. And they have spent a prodigious amount of energy over the last 5 centuries trying to convince us that all the activity is above the atmosphere and space when it's actually going on like underneath us. And
look at Admiral Byrd. I 100% agree. 100% agree.
Yeah, this is a major data thread that we're always exploring in Archaix, and because we see all these major UFO stories and we see all these things, but to us it translates as something different. There is an organized group beneath us. I can say they're human, but I can say they're slightly altered because they've been in a totally different biosphere for so long. But I can also say with confidence that there's more real estate in the underworld than there is on the surface. I mean, the surface is 2 dimensions. Highest you can go is a skyscraper. You can't live under the ocean, so you're living on a flat. You're living on pretty much a flat plane, even if it's spheroid. It doesn't matter. But in the underworld, we can pancake cities. We can go all the way down. There's a lot of real estate down there. And UFO activity is always seen going in and out of valleys, mountains, and lakes of water. In the oceans. But they're never seen in the atmosphere, coming in and out. So I just want to know what is your take on the UFO UAP phenomenon?
Oh, yes. I mean, I've had experiences with that stuff since I've been a little kid. I grew up in northern Wisconsin. It was logging country up there. So a lot of woods.
Wide open skies.
Wide open skies, yeah. And you didn't have the light pollution that you have near cities. In fact, I lived in a little town called Sainer. It's right in between Saint Germain and Sainer. It's about 40 miles south of the Upper Peninsula. And I mean, literally, if you called a cop, it'd take 20 minutes for them just to get there. Yeah. So that
sounds like Houston.
Yeah, there you go. Right. The difference is you're in a city, right? Of course, that's Houston now. Yeah. But anyhow, yeah, I've had a lot of experiences up there. I actually had a motorcycle shut down in the 70s, totally shut it down. And I used to track these things. And I've seen a lot out here in California. Of course, a lot of people know about that base that's right in between Zuma Beach and the Channel Islands, huge base underneath there. I was teaching a physics class in the 80s. And it was interesting because we got into some of this esoteric talk. And I had mentioned that, my opinion was there was a lot of extraterrestrials. And one of the kids in the class piped up. He says, yeah, my dad's an admiral. And he says, we take submarines all the way underneath the California coast. It's honeycombed all the way to Salt Lake City almost. And I'm like, wow. And that's all he said. That's all he knew. But yeah, most of the people who are in higher level brackets of military, they're very tuned into what's going on. And I think
I have no doubt. I have no doubt.
They're very tuned into what's going on.
I see that. I see that the phenomenon has been going on for a very long period of time, and that our interpretation of what's going on has a lot to do with our frames of reference. In the 1200s, in the late Dark Ages, up to the early Middle Ages, I mean, we would call them fairies and ring fairies, and they're dancing in the cornfield. And in the morning, go out there in the cornfield, there's a ring in the field. There's an agroglyph there. Christian communities used to call it the mowing devil phenomenon. And there's a lot of famous woodcuts that show the devil dancing in a circle, creating crop circles. So, in Scandinavia, Yeah, they're very real. I've
Oh,
studied
man.
the agroglyphs. They're
You look
very
at the
real.
intricacy of a crop circle, there is no way any.
Absolutely.
Doug and Dave did
Absolutely.
not make the crop circles, not the real
Now,
ones.
Doug and Dave were hired to do that BS. They were
Yes,
hired
they
to
were.
be filmed with tennis rackets on their damn feet.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's
Yeah, it's
exactly
crazy.
right, man. No question about that. But no, the intricacy, I mean, they don't even bend a stalk. And then they've been measuring thing. Barbara Lamb is a good friend of ours, and she's done
Oh yeah,
extensive.
I know the name. I know
Yeah,
hasn't she authored 2 books?
yeah,
Oh,
she's a wonderful lady. Yeah.
yeah, I know
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Dr. Lear was another friend who was taking literally alien implants out of people, testing them in labs, materials we don't even have the
Dr. Roger
capability.
Lear, I featured his work about 10 times on my channel. Dr.
Yeah.
Roger, Dr. Roger Lear's work is unmatched.
Unmatched.
I shocked me when I read his book and he
Yeah.
described the sentience in those little implants and how they would run away from his scalpel. They knew they were about to get taken out of people's bodies. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Oh
crazy.
yeah, I used to go to coffee with him up at Denny's. We'd go to the we were at the MUFON. Of course, back then it was called Mutual UFO Network. Now it's Mutual UAP Network, I think. I
Right,
don't know
right.
what they call it. But yeah, he was a hell of a nice guy. And he passed away, but the work he did was so extensive and he got a lot of heat from his colleagues in his field. You know, oh, you're crazy. That's we can't
Well,
substantiate that
I
stuff.
didn't know you were a conduit to that man, but
Oh yeah, he's
my
amazing guy.
publisher gave me his book, and my publisher's story is a lot like yours. He traveled the world with Zechariah Sitchin, and
Oh wow.
he was Zechariah Sitchin's personal cameraman and videographer.
Oh
And
nice.
Zechariah Sitchin took him everywhere. His name was Paul Tice. You know,
Yeah.
by the time Sitchin was done traveling and he was writing his Earth Chronicles, Paul's in San Diego right now. My publisher is Book Tree Press. Well, he started a bookstore. Then he realized that all the best books are either out of print or large publishing houses won't publish them. So
Well, won't publish it.
he published Jordan Maxwell. He published Tracy
Oh, I love
Twyman.
George. Yeah,
He
here's
published
another guy I met. I love Jordan.
yeah,
He passed away too. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he published Roger Lear.
Oh,
He
yeah.
published Jack Barringer,
Right.
Neil Freer, Hugh Montgomery, uh, Joan d'Arc. That's her pseudonym. But
Right.
all these people, other publishers wouldn't touch. My publisher did that. And
Right.
then I was in prison, Jeff, and I got 4 publishing contracts from Booktree. When I sent them my books and they saw how extensive my bibliographies were, they gave me a shot. I've been in prison since I was 17 years old. And by the time I was 27, Booktree had already signed me on for my first book. And
Wow.
this man's story is just like yours. Traveled the world, went to India, Tibet, did all these things. He was really into some of the philosophical and the religious stuff, and then finally settled down in San Diego, started a bookstore, then started a publishing company. And
Right.
he has astrology charts on the bookstore walls, and he's a great guy. He's a personal friend of mine now, and I'm always sending people to Jason's shelf. Because in the bookstore, there's a huge shelf called Jason's Shelf. It's all all the books that I recommend to read. But
That's great. Yeah.
you've got a story
No,
that's a lot
I
like
love
yours.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You know, it's interesting when you talk about astrology because that was the interesting thing is I had a guy who also passed away, George Parks. George Parks and Roger Shear were the head of the MUFON I should say organization in Arizona. And this is probably about 15 years ago, something like that. George had asked me and Roger, Jeff, could you do a talk on is there any astronomical correlations to some of the ufology that's been happening? And we looked at Travis Walton. We looked at the Minot Air Force Base. Many different Shag Harbor, all this stuff, these abductions versus military things that had happened left at Eastgate. And interestingly enough, there was correlations, especially when I had birth data to certain people. I would look at the progressions and transits to the birth chart. And we definitely found correlations. And one of the things that was really intriguing to me was when you really look at Saturn. Saturn seems to be where time and our perception of reality starts. And there is no time. Time is a total illusion. If you put us on a different planet, a different synodic cycle, meaning the rotation and the daily sunrise, noon, sunset, and midnight, and the lunations, if you took that all away and put us on a different time frame, reality would totally shift.
It would be totally different.
They'd be totally different. That's right. There is no time. I always say God created time, so everything would happen at once. And that was actually a phrase that Gandhi used. And many of the ancient Naadi astrologers said that first breath that would see, the Egyptians were amazing to me because they actually used what they call conception charts. And there's an ancient legend. They say an angelic force attaches by silver cord the spirit, psyche, and soul to the embryo in mom's womb, and this happens to animals too, right at conception, not at birth. And that silver cord is attached to the soul force energy and all its karmic energies. And then when we exit the womb, whenever that is, it could be 9 months, could be whatever, some people come premature, some come a little late. When we exit the womb, you said you were born in a bathtub, which I think is really cool. That's great. Yep. And you might be lucky they didn't come at you with 15 needles, vaccinating you.
Well, so, I didn't get my shot. Hey, your picture disappeared. Do you need to come back in?
Oh yeah, no. What happens? My camera times out. This camera. I got another camera. I got.
Yeah, I know. You told me you switched cameras right before the show.
Yeah.
No, you're good. Yeah, I didn't even get my social security card my social security number till I was 5 years old. I was adopted when I was 5. But yeah, I was born in a bathtub. My mom was 16 years old and very petite, and she was horrified of pain. And so we had a specialist. They had a specialist come in who was a sedation specialist, underwater births. So that's how that happened. But before we get, I know you did a chart on me. Before we get to that, I want to. I had a theory. About 3 years ago, I released a video, and in that theory, it's called the fog, mass vanishings. And I gave a lot of examples of UFO sightings. And in those UFO I gave out my theory, and I presented my evidence in that video. It's still on YouTube. I said, hey, guys, I'm not buying that these vehicles that are defying all the laws of physics, constants, man, it's just, these aren't occupied. These aren't material. Something else is going on. And the examples that I gave were in each incident, they appeared near flying vehicles, like they were just playing or toying with them until that was 3 years ago. And then all of a sudden, this guy gets a prison sentence for releasing military grade visuals from drones. He gets a prison sentence. Are you familiar with I know you're familiar with the mystery of a Malaysian flight Air 370.
Yeah.
The one that disappeared. The one that disappeared, and they all these search for. Okay, well, for about 3 years of search parties, and they kind of give up and all that, and then after everybody's given up, this footage gets released online, and instantly these gigantic channels all look at it, and their arguments are pedantic. I listen to them. I even have the links to all. It's like every argument they put up is like ridiculous. Even if I disbelieved this footage, I could have come up with way better arguments than that. But have you seen that footage of those 3 UFOs forming a triangle around the Malaysian Flight 370 and then spinning rapidly and then the whole plane vanishing? Have you seen that footage?
That footage I have not seen. Am I still coming through here?
Yeah, I hear you perfectly.
Okay, good. So, I didn't know my audio was still on. It's not showing.
That footage is amazing.
Yeah, I haven't seen that footage. It's Jim Delatoso is a good friend of mine. I don't know if you know him. He's been well known. He did the Phoenix Lights, and I'll never forget. This is back, I think, 1996 or 97. 97, I think it was. I showed up over at Village Labs, and some really interesting people there. Dr. Swimmer, he was a mathematician, and of course, Jim Delatoso. Jim's kind of dropped a little bit out of the scene. They tried to destroy his credibility, but he examined the Phoenix Light. They always do. And he actually ended up with they did something to his retina. They abducted him, did something to his retina. It's pretty wild stuff. But anyhow, he was examining the Phoenix Lights, and I could tell you the same thing. I mean, the configurations around this stuff, there's no way it was fake. And Dr. Lynn Katai, of course, was the driving force. She was actually there with him examining that. It was really cool stuff. I didn't expect it. I showed up to see Jim, right? And next thing I know, he's got all these people around, all these reporters and everything. And of course, the Phoenix Lights they were examining. And so interesting. I mean, anybody who thinks this is not real, better get some more coffee because
the phenomenon is very real. And yeah. I have the full collection of William Corliss right here. This is called the Source Book Project. These are
Oh,
all
wow.
these are all scientific reports. We of
Yeah.
course put them together. These scientific reports go back 400 years, and
Yeah.
in there, the phenomenon isn't any different. These
Yep.
orbs would appear, change shape, sometimes look like discs, move erratically, and people would vanish off the ground. Animals would blink out, and when they blinked back in, they would be missing whole quarters. They would have incisions and weird cuts on them. And
Oh, yeah.
this has been going on for a very long period of
Long time. Yeah. Look at the stuff that's going up at Skinwalker. You know, that's just one example, but there's no question.
I haven't followed that. See, because the Skinwalker, it seems to me it's a lot like what's that Templar treasure island? They keep looking for treasure.
Oh, right.
Episode after episode after episode after episode. Yeah, I think
TV. That's TV. But it is some good stuff, and it validates. You know, I can tell you, I have seen stuff in my own life that's just crazy. I'll never forget one night. I was on a motorcycle late at night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, coming home from a girlfriend's house, right? And I saw all these animals, like the kind of animals you don't see at night. You always see deer, you see raccoon, but I was seeing squirrels and, you know, small little animals, chipmunks and stuff running around. And I could tell something scared them. Well, there was an old farm up there that was apparently in the 1800s. It was a really big farm, agri farm that they had created up there in northern Wisconsin. So it was just a barren field. And I went out there and I saw all these lights shooting up and down and up and down. And there was a lot of them. I mean, it looked like there might have been hundreds of these pinhole lights going up and down. And all these animals were freaking out. It's pretty wild. And I
would be with the animals freaking out.
Yeah, I was really enamored by it. You know, I've just seen so many things, like traveling across the Southwest deserts. I love it. I have a little film rig, and I used to travel back and forth between Tucson and of course California. And on the 8, which is really south, it's way south of the 10. And you cut across, it's just nothing but rolling mountains and deserts. And a lot of times
I've been there. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah. So I would pull over, and the stuff I'd see, you know, craft just skipping over the mountains, and some of it would just take off. I mean, there's no way we've got anything like that. And I've actually talked to a lot of guys in the military who said the same thing, that, you know, hey, this is definitely a real situation, and they, you know, they don't want to talk too much about it. They're all afraid.
Yeah, but, my whole position is that all activity is coming from underground. They've been underneath us from the beginning.
You might be right. Look at Admiral Byrd. Why were the governments funding? Why do we have mountains named after the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and other people in Antarctica? Look at Admiral Byrd, that huge armada that they brought down. I mean, that takes a lot of money to bring all those Navy ships, all the planes, aircraft carriers. And what did they do? They went in the hole of Antarctica, and word has it they were brought down. And these advanced people were telling them, listen, we now know you've gone nuclear. If you ever unleash a full nuclear scale war, we'll intervene and stop it. That's apparently what he was told. That's one version I've heard. And let's hope that's true, because, you know, that brings me a little bit to the current world of astrology, not to get into politics or anything, but I got to tell you, I've been warning on my podcast, and, you know, if anybody wants to go to Jeff Harman Astrologer, we have a lot of cool podcasts, and I've been talking an awful lot about Uranus. Uranus is a real enigma. And of course, it is the first of the outer 3 planets that were discovered later, even though I know they were discovered a lot earlier than that. The Rig Veda and many other texts makes references to these. And what's interesting about this is that every 84 years, Uranus goes around the solar system. Well, it just happens to be in a sidereal zodiac right now, going over the Pleiades. And I know you're probably very familiar with the story, right, of Atlas and the 7 sisters and all that in the Pleiades. Well, there's 7 stars in there. And right now, Uranus is retrograding back over one of the most evil fixed stars. Well, guess what? Every 84 years, if you do some math in history, and then just recent history, 84 years ago was what? World War II. 84 years before that, Civil War.
Civil
80
War.
years before that was the Revolutionary War. By the way, I want to mention, you know that today is the anniversary of the United States constitutional signing. That's pretty cool.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And I actually,
1783.
yep, it was here. I actually got that somewhere. I think it was 1787 is when it was signed.
1787. Okay.
Yeah,
I know
1787.
it was the 1780s because we declared our independence long before we actually secured it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I have to say, you know, one thing I got to agree with Elon Musk. You know, I personally think in modern times, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is probably one of the most sacred documents because I love it. It literally, it was ingenious. You know, the Iroquois Indians were actually brought in to consult on the drafting of a lot of that.
That's where the 13 arrows come from in the eagle's claw. The 13 clans of the Iroquois.
That's right. And, you know, the Catholic Church hates the Masons, but yet the original Masonry stuff was quite profound. And it was steeped in that. Yeah, you look at all the dollar bills, the 13 sheaths, the 13 arrows, and the what is it? The
okay, I'm gonna take one step further, Jeff, and I'm gonna check this out. America, the ancient world was separated into 12 quadrants. The Americas on the other side was the 13th region. Now, the 13 colonies, check this out, the 13 colonies are literally founded by the descendants of those who conquered Rome in 476 AD, 13 centuries earlier, exactly, from 1776. Not only that, but the region of North America is the ancestral homeland of the ancient Maya, who believed they lived under 13 heavens, and that North America would survive until the end of the 13th Bacton, which is the 13th Bacton being the last of the Mayan epics called Bactons, which were 400 years each. I do a lot of chronological research on my channel, and they say that at the end of the Bacton count, which is not 2012. Right. If you don't know this, I already had books published before 2011 informing the community of the mistake the scholars did in 1952 when they didn't factor in Mayan mathematics. They used modern year of 365.25, which the Maya did not know. And they totally corrupted the output. The real end of the Mayan long count is November of 2046. And that's when the Mayas say that the 13 hells will be unleashed on the world. But the number 13 is attached to this geographical area of North America where the 13 English colonies rebelled against the crown and where the United States came from. Number 13 has always been representative of the Americas, which have been isolated from the other 12 sectors of the world.
Yeah, this is a very sacred place. It really is. And they're trying to destroy it right now. Not to get political, but I'll tell you, they are trying to destroy it. The United States is under a Pluto return in the sidereal zodiac. This country will be very disrupted by the end of this year, or it's going to be the phoenix rising out of the ashes. I tend to lean towards the latter. This is a really tough time on this country right now. And what's interesting about what I was just mentioning in Uranus, see, Uranus every 84 years goes around. And if you go before the Civil War, look at the stuff. You probably know a lot about this. What was going on in the 1600s, the Black Plague, all the dissension with the monarchies and so on and so forth, the wars. So if you keep leapfrogging back every 84 years just on Uranus alone, you'll see that the world goes through a crazy time of rebellion and dissension against demonic forces. This is exactly what's happened. Look what happened today. Hezbollah, though, all these pagers exploding, like 2,800 people got killed.
Didn't even know that. First I heard of that. Wow.
Yeah, that just happened today. Apparently, they had all these pagers on the Hezbollah terrorists, and about 8 or so many of them. I don't know all the details, but they all exploded, killed like 2,800 people over there. The owners at the top of the pyramid are always funding this dissension, and everybody thinks it's the government. George Carlin was right. Forget the politicians. You have owners, and it's not just State Street, BlackRock, and Vanguard. It is the bankers running them. And I really think there's some very dark demonic intertwinement there. And, I think there's a lot of folks underneath us of different varying, breeds.
Well, on this channel, Jeff, we kind of get deep on that type of stuff. We talk about artificial intelligence X, AI X, Roko's basilisk. We have all kinds of ideas of what's going on. And we're even entertaining the idea that almost every single public figure we see that's towing the party lines is actually AI, and a lot of these people do not exist. And a lot of these psyops and all these false flags are the same actors over and over and over. And the more we analyze popular events that the collective falls for, the more we see just a script unfolding. So,
yeah, that's it. Well, we're in a very dangerous time right now. If you look at the globe, I was just on the phone with somebody in England this morning before I got on with you. And he was telling me about how they're literally flooding all these European countries with refugees. This is being funded, just like in the United States. They want to destroy the middle-class culture and we have a war right now going on between globalism and nationalism. And it's interesting, who would have ever thought that, we'd hear the words World War III. I mean, to think about that, it's insanity. To even have that brought up. And Uranus right now going around this 84-year cycle for 7 years. And 7 is a very interesting number. There's 7 holes in your head, 7 halls of heaven and hell. And also you can't even find the square root of the number 7. So really 7 days of the week, it can go on and on. And what's interesting is Saturn has a 7-year cycle on the earth around each of its quarters. 7 times 4 is 28.5. So, or 28. So we're in something right now where Uranus, again, 84 years ago, Hitler was attacking all these countries in Europe. All kinds of stuff was going on. Japan was being built up. And again, the same bankers that were funding them are doing the same stuff right now. It's just the descendants of the families. And, it always makes me wonder who's really behind this stuff. I was actually in a hallway about probably 25 years ago in Beverly Hills. And I won't mention where, but I was in a hallway and I saw a guy shapeshift in front of me to like almost 7.5, 8 feet tall. And I just was like, whoa, did I just see that? And he saw that I saw it. And then I had another time, I was doing some transcriptions out of ancient Aramaic, which is a lot different than the modern stuff. And I had a guy that I was working with, his hand morphed into a claw. And I saw that. And I thought, okay, I'm imagining things, right? Except he takes his hand and he puts it under the table and gets all sheepish. And then he had to go pretty soon. And I'm like, okay, so we are in something, again, you use the term simulacrum. And I think that's really not too far off base there, my friend. I really do. I think you're right in the pocket there, because we, a diagram that I want to put on the screen, and I guess I can share a screen here. Yeah.
Yeah, you can present. You can share a screen. You can present present bottom on the bottom.
Let's see here. Where the heck are we? Yeah. Let's see. I want to get the whole thing, entire screen. There we go. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to just end up going over here. It's going to get squirrely here for a minute, but this is one of my favorite diagrams. You'll probably enjoy this. This is a diagram that I kind of put together a while back, and I think it's somewhat of a demonstrative scenario that could be. There's many ways of looking at this, but one of the things that I love is, whatever you want to call the creator, divinity, or source of creation. A lot of people call it God, right? And you could see there's the Ein Sof War. You could see this, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, we can all see it. We can all see
good.
it.
So beneath that it's apparently the light of creation is too bright to even go into creation. So these are like the filters, if you will, to where creation actually starts. So notice this first world is called the world of absolute, and they claim soul force energy, or the souls, are created way up here. I don't have a pen, but at least I can kind of show you here. So what's interesting is there's no astrology up here. There's no planetary energy, like astrologers would say. In fact, they claim there's 49 dimensions and 49 subdimensions up here. And the Western version is it's the seraphims, the cherubims, and the throne are literally chanting mathematical permutations that create the universes below. The next world down, Braya, is where the waters of creation start getting much more dense, and all these spiritual worlds are believed to exist. And they say there's 49 dimensions and 49 subdimensions here. And you can see there's like a tree of life in each one. And these are the angels that rule it over here. Well, then you get down into the Yetziratic world. And I'm sure, Jason, you've heard of a text called the Sefer Yetzirah.
Yeah, Sefer Yetzirah. I have a copy in my library.
You bet. Now, I've got several different versions. It's pretty well. So Sefer means book, and Yetzirah, one interpretation of it is formation. And this is interesting because it's not just the formation of matter, but it seems to be an amalgamation of a lot more. For instance, they say this is where the amino acids are, the molecular structures, all the gas clouds, all the stuff that everybody talks about in astronomy and universal analysis, quantum physics talk about this a lot, all these different dimensions. And they claim there could be 49 parallel universes and 49 subdimensions. Now, I can't balance my checkbook, let alone even fathom this, but that's what it's claimed to be there. And notice here you start seeing some of the Western versions of the 24 wings of the wind, the 72 angels of Exodus, which are quite interesting. And that is the Shem HaMephorash that's encoded in the Western Bible. And there seems to be some real parallels in the Vedantic literature of this as well. Well, here's what's interesting. Every religion that you hear from, including the Egyptians, all talk about this war in heaven, or this war between good and evil. And there may be a lot more truth to that than we know. Of course, we have the Garden of Eden story in the West. Well, they say the evil spirits were cast down and they're forced right at a molecular level. And I think it's much deeper than that. We just don't know how to analyze it in physics yet. But they are literally forced to be a part of creation. And they say that there, again, could be 49 parallel universes. There's many rabbinical texts that talk about there could be hundreds of planets very similar to Earth throughout these lower universes. And there's many much higher and many much lower. And they say that literally anywhere we would go in the Yetziratic universes, we're always going to find some measure of good and evil, because the evil spirits are actually incarcerated right at the creational level, which again, I think is much deeper than just molecules, atoms, neutrinos, and all this stuff that physics talks about. And what's fascinating here is everything under the sun will be born and will be matured or grow, experience atrophy, and exit the physical plane. Even the earth itself, the human kingdom, the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, you name them, all in whatever order, that's all going to have a finite existence in what we call time. And then you get into the astral planes, which they claim there's 49 dimensions and 49 subdimensions of that. And that is where they say spirit resides while it's entrapped in what I call the soul cauldron, Earth. I always say, Jason, the Earth is a soul cauldron, and we're all here stuck on spin cycle, just like a wash machine, So, in fact, I'm actually going to name our daily podcast "Stuck on Spin Cycle" because it kind of fits. But anyhow, where I'm going with this is, what do we have here? And this really gets into what is astrology and what isn't astrology, and it's really claimed in most of the texts that I can discern that what we have is Earth is a place where spirit manifests in all these miraculous, diverse forms, whether again be in some life form, whether it's alien, as we would call it, human, again, animal, plant, or mineral. It's and I think there's a lot of spiritual manifestation here too. And they it's interesting about birth in a birth chart, because they say that, and you think about a womb, think about amazingly miraculous that is. You're taking an animal or a woman, and you're taking chemicals that are forming out of nothing, sperm and an egg. And what happens? All the genetics are encoded, plus the karma is encoded. And then what happens is it grows, and then it leaves the womb, and that's when breath starts, at least in mammals.
Yeah,
Right?
Jeff, don't leave out the fact that women are the only members of the sex that actually have two souls for a while.
There you go. Yep. Isn't that cool? Really amazing, really stunning. And we have a spiritual manifestation machine here, a divine one. And when you look at what's happening on this planet and what has happened on this planet, it's absolutely miraculous. And this leads me to another diagram that is really interesting. And this is actually out of a text called the Sha'ar HaGilgam, which is a strange word that just means the gates of reincarnation. And when you look at this diagram, here, I'll show you one more that kind of goes with this. I put these together just to demonstrate this stuff. And this is another one that's quite interesting. Well, here, that's not the one I want. The one I want is going to be right there. I think this is it. Yeah. See, here, this is a little more demonstrative. They say when we are born that we are knocked out. Literally, in fact, there's a mark between our nose and our upper lip. This is actually in a text you may have heard of called the Sefer Haggadah, which is the book of legends of the soul. And I don't think they're legends. I think there's a lot more truth to them. And literally, we are knocked out at first breath, so we can't remember anything. It's kind of like that game in England they used to play where you put a gunny sack over your head and somebody beats you with a club until you get lucky enough to hit the other guy, and then he's got to put the sack on.
That doesn't sound like a very fun game.
It's not a fun game, but neither is life sometimes, and sometimes it is. But so this big thick dashed line is the demarcation between what modern psychology might call the so-called conscious mind, and above here is the so-called subconscious mind. But I think a much better metaphor is it's the present personality. And this is what's interesting, is in this text, and it's not that old. It was written in the 14th century by Rabbi Luria. And he is a very humble man. I really like him because he always says, I'm not 100% sure. But see, his master was the Arizal, who only lived to be 40 years old, and he couldn't see with his eyes, but he could see souls. He could literally see where every soul, its path had come from. And he talks about how the lower conscious mind that we call in the West is really also referred to as the nefesh. It's the same thing. Nefesh just simply means our perception of emotional reality. And I always call it the steering wheel, the gas pedal, and the brakes to the five senses in the physical world. Look at a child or an animal. When they're born, they can't even see, most of them. They certainly can't talk or walk. And their whole perception of reality is being formed because we're knocked out. We're dumbed down and knocked out for the most part. Some of us aren't. But what's interesting is by the time a child is 7 years old, and there's that number 7 again, what happens? All kinds of things have been happening in the growth on the genetics, but also in the mind. Every 7 years, science has even examined this. They say, your whole genetics will change. All the cells in your body will have changed. Well, there might be a lot more truth to that than we know. So the interesting thing, and this is AI, is now encroaching. I believe AI will never be like humanity because it can't, because we take logic and reason and we emotionalize it. Even the most rational human being still has emotional impressions. This is why mind control works, is because if you tell somebody enough time, you make a deep enough impression emotionally, they will go for the pleasure rather than the pain. This is the lower conscious mind complex. And
hey, Jeff, if you take true artificial intelligence, if a true perfect artificial intelligence was actually created, it wouldn't be like humans. It would be reptilian, because its logical faculties will be so acute that it can remove all aspects of all the barriers and all the little things that would stop us from doing certain things, because we have morals and ethics, and we have some of us have a modicum of spirituality, but a true AI would be pure reptilian.
It'd be pure evil. Because Musk and many others have said that. They said, well, we might cease to exist. And I always loved the Terminator movie, Terminator 2. I got to give Cameron a lot of credit on that one, where at the end of Terminator 2, he said, "I know now why you cry." Remember Schwarzenegger's character? And he said, "I could never do that. So we got to be destroyed." So, but we're at the core of that right now. See, the human spirit, which is also known as the Rosh, not a doctor drawing breath can tell us why we stay alive. Oh, it's the heartbeat. No, it's not. What is energy? We don't even know what the hell energy is. It's not heat. It's not light. It's not molecules. It's not, all this various different measurements of the manifestation of energy. We don't know what energy is. And I defy a physicist to prove what is pure energy. We don't know. It manifests in so many forms. Well, what's interesting about the human psyche is this life force energy pours in from the human spirit, which is also known as the wisdom of the soul. And I believe the Egyptians and the ancient Tibetans and the ancients in the Vedantic knew all about this stuff. And this is why they went through the training they did in the mystery schools, because it would allow them to tap in to this potential upper dimensional part of ourselves. And the world seeks to hide this from us completely. Why else would they be fluoridating us? You know what Barnum and Bailey used to use to make their animals more tame in the circus? Fluoride. They put fluoride in the water. Wow. And that's what they're doing now. And they've been doing it forever, for a long. If you live in a big city, the likelihood that you've got a fair amount of fluoride, and that's not easy to do. You have to truck that stuff in, put it in tanks and filter it in. I mean, this is a direct attempt. I think it was Rothschild said it. He said, we'll poison your air, we'll poison your water, and we'll poison your food. I mean, if that's not demonic, I don't know what is. If that's not reptilian, I don't know what it is, But these diagrams are interesting because notice Saturn operates just above what modern psychology would call the so-called subconscious mind. And this gets back into that other diagram. What is astrology? Astrology is not us. Most astrologers will run around and call you a Gemini or a Pisces or whatever other sun sign crap they hand to you. And there's some vague similarities to it. But I think astrology is the interconnected time portals that connect the soul roots to all these various roots of the soul, which is exceedingly complex, far beyond analysis in astrology that I've seen, that shows the path we're on in time. No one's going to live forever in the physical world, but we do in the spiritual world unless we destroy the soul through the demonic forces. And that can happen. A lot of this evil stuff people get involved with, it can actually destroy the soul.
Well, one of the presentations I'm about to do is on reincarnation, because it's a part of the Archaix paradigm. I believe that we're living life sims, soul journeys, and that the immortal within assumes different avatars as the avatars run out, get old. We're still subject to the laws of physics, and entropy is one of the reasons the avatar, just like coding in a program, it gets corrupted, just like links and hyperlinks. They can get corrupt. Everything breaks down from use. So, but the immortal within, we keep having these experiences. So I'm about to do a video in the next week or two showing the scientific reports coming out of Europe and Russia, where they've literally talked to thousands of kids who remember their past lives. Researchers went out there and verified all this data, saying, there's no way in hell this kid is not who he says he was. So
you bet.
Dr. I'm about to do a video on that.
No, that's great. I mean, I love it. See, that's kind of stuff I like. And I'll tell you why. The biggest lie that's been handed to humanity is you're all going to die, right? And the religions throw this dogma up our rear ends that, you're all sinners and you're all going to hell. Well, that's a real simplified way of looking at things. Do you know Dr. Carl Wicklund? I just did a podcast about that on my YouTube channel. I encourage people to go check it out. And we talk about the work Dr. Carl Wicklund did. He was born in the 1800s. And of course, also the psychiatrist, Carl Jung. Amazing stuff. He did the book Synchronicity. Now, that's an interesting book to read. Of course, the Police did a song on that one. But the interesting thing about Dr. Carl Wicklund's work, here's a guy who went to psychiatry. Well, first, you have to become a psychiatrist. You have to become a doctor. Then you go to psychiatry school afterwards. So you have to be an MD first. So he graduated, I think, in the early teens of last century. And he didn't believe in anything spiritual whatsoever. Everything was left brain, allopathic science, right? So what does he do? He meets a lady who falls in love with her and marries her, who's a spiritual channel. And, you talk about the opposites coming together. And so Wicklund didn't know if she was real or not. So what he did is he did a psychiatric analysis to see if she was crazy or not. Is she delusional or is she really channeling spirits? Well, to his amazement, she takes on a individual. And by the way, I should mention, Dr. Carl Wicklund is the guy who created shock therapy treatment. In other words, they're called a Wimhurst generator. They were created back in the 1800s, very high voltage, like thousands of volts, but very low current, like the Tesla stuff. Right. So he would scrape down the spine of a possessed person who had schizophrenia, multiple personality disorders, and he would dislodge the spirit. In fact, they're still doing this stuff to this day because it corrects or dislodges the attached spirit, which the Sharia Gilgam refers to as Iburs. Well, long story short, he takes his wife takes on this spirit who said, "You're the guy who's shocking me with this lightning." And Wicklund says, "Well, what do you mean?" And the person goes to explain in detail, grave details, all in the book, 30 Years Among the Dead is the name of the book. And they explained all these details they couldn't have known had they not been there. And Dr. Wicklund says, "You must be possessing my patient who has schizophrenia, and you must be a deceased soul." And the guy says, "Well, that makes sense. Nobody talks to me anymore, and I'm angry, and I'm in this dark place." So 30 years later, he assembled the most amazing corpus of evidence. And this is hardcore evidence. People who had had accidents, fallen off roofs or whatever, they would possess someone. He would dislodge them. In fact, he ran the Psychical Institute in California. The insane asylums would send him incurable people. He would dislodge the spirit with shock therapy treatment. His wife would bring them in. He'd speak to them. And almost every one of them never even knew they were dead. And a lot of them complained about their religions. Like, my religion never taught me that. They just said I was a sinner and I was going to hell, right? So the interesting thing is he would get these people just through normal dialogue, like you and I are having right now, to realize their condition. All of a sudden, they change their consciousness. And there's mom. Well, hell, I haven't seen mom in 40 years. Or some other, relative or person would come to them and they would, quote unquote, go off. And it'll very much like Patrick Swayze in the movie Ghost. Remember when that window opened up at first and he could have left, but he stayed and helped Molly. So very accurate movie. And I think it's a lot like that. And long story short, he probably left us the most accurate document. People, they would go research. I'm so-and-so, and I used to run a drugstore. They'd go check. Oh, my God, the guy's name, he just died a year ago or 6 months or 3 years back. Amazing stuff. Absolutely stunning. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. They just threw that book in the dustbin. It actually got remarketed in the 70s. I've now got 3 or 4 versions. That is probably one of the single most important books. And I've had a lot of psychiatrists as clients who all say to me, Jeff, I can't say anything because I'll lose my license, but I love this stuff. And I know it's true because I work in the prison system and I see these possessions of people. And this is one of the greatest lies perpetrated on the human race, is that we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And astrology is the science of time. It's not us. It's the synchronization of time and karma. And the world has been urinating down our back and telling us it's raining with all this history. It's great that you expose a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, it's I'll never be in a position in my life where I do not have something to do. It's I can always open up a single book and just entertain my community for 2.5, 3 hours, and just there's always every single book, even books I disagree with, even when the tenets are completely antithetical to anything that I hold to be true, I'm still going to find some type of gem in there that we can explore and talk about, go in different directions with. But, just like yesterday I had no idea that I was going to mess up that email to you twice and then have to freestyle a video. But I've never been in a jam. There's so much to talk about. There's so much to learn. And if I'm ever at a loss because I didn't come to the table prepared, all I have to do is throw anything out. My comment section will give me the ideas I need. We'll just take off.
We're living in a spiritual matrix of time. It's literally the synchronization of time with experience, and it would be so much more enlightening to live if we were to look at this stuff. Astrology has been treated as though it's work of the devil, right? And the churches want nothing to do with this stuff, nothing. And yet I have ran into so many people. I mean, the Pope takes a bath in a bathtub surrounded by the zodiac.
The zodiac, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, and the Vatican is probably full of more esoteric knowledge than most places, at least I'll say that. And very interesting. If we were to take the zodiac and remove all the mythological overtones and go just with the core fundamentals, this area of the sky, what it means in juxtaposition when this object is passing, when this object is in retrograde, if we were to remove names, titles, and all that, and just program all of this into some software and give everything an X factor. This is X1, this is X2, X3 is in retrograde, X1, X2, and X3 are at 30 at the 30 degree whatever. If we were just to reduce this to core fundamentals and programming, we would probably find out that astrology is literally just telling us the programming of the construct itself, and those who are best at reading it are the best astrologers. Yeah, it's literally, it is, I would agree with that. Though the archetypal functions, see, this is what's interesting about some of the old Egyptian and the Vedantic stuff, is the archetypal units assigned to each planet, or archetypal, characteristics, are absolutely amazing. I mean, there's no question, Mars. What you're dealing with here when you get into astrology is planets can be exalted. They can be in what we call the Egyptian bounds, the triplicity lords, all these divisions, which modern astrology is completely lost.
When you say triplicity, are you talking about like trigons?
They come from the trigons, right? See, you have earth, air, fire, and water, right? So what's interesting is those trigons are what they call the triplicity lords. The Egyptians and the Chaldeans, absolutely amazing, absolutely stunning how accurate this stuff is.
Yeah, I'm the first to admit to my community that astrology is not anything that I have researched in depth. I have books from the 1800s on astrology. That's one on the zodiac right there. I got another one in my other studio I show all the time. It's from 1893 called The Influence of the Zodiac on Human Life. And it's what opened my mind to maybe look at this, because it nailed me to a T. June 9th, you can look up your birth. I was like, wow. And then I did the test.
You got a really powerful Raj Yoga in the 10th house. See, you were born, you're in the sidereal zodiac. You have Leo rising, and you've got the sun in the midheaven conjunct Saturn, Lord of your 9th. What is that? Esoteric knowledge. And it's also aspected by Mars from the 7th. So yeah, that's called a Raj Yoga. And it's interesting.
I have no idea of anything you're telling me about. I literally don't know anything about astrology.
Well, these are yogas or configurations in astrology. When you put them into plain English, it gives you a lot of ability to research the past. And I'll bet you've done this before in a previous incarnation. See, you're actually in what we call a Saturn Time Lord right now. And that ignites that very powerful energy in your 10th house. Again, this is the problem with astrology. You got all this fancy nomenclature. You got to come all these terms, right? It's enough to make your eyeballs cross. I know. Try studying with people from India. I have. Then they talk so fast. By the time you say, what'd you say? They're under the fourth subject. It takes forever to learn this stuff. But what's interesting is, like you were just saying, if you just look at it as a modulation of complex matrical energy, that's interacting with the soul, completely different for you, me, and everyone else drawing breath. Think about it. If our solar system is in fact going around a central point called a central star, and there might be a binary star system, about every 25, 700, 900,000 years, just short of 26,000 years, you could never get the same chart twice. When a child draws breath, an animal or a plant is born, when that spirit manifests into the physical world, you could never get the same chart twice. I mean, you can call everybody in the planet with a telephone with 10 numbers on it. How do you think you can do?
Okay, well, check this out.
Degrees, 12 houses, 12 signs, and the myriad of fixed stars. It's infinite. It's infinite.
You're absolutely. See, you're speaking our language.
Infinite.
Now we're dealing. Right now we have 1,678 people in the chat. I would say about 40% of these people have been with me over 3 years, and they know me very well. I'm talking about. I get very personal in a lot of my videos. I've taken. I don't do just videos in the studio. I do them in multiple different vehicles out in public. The reason I'm saying this is you took my personal information down and you were going to look into me and do a reading and all that. So yeah. I'm gonna ask you, why don't you inform my community as to what you saw, and we'll let them in the chat either agree or disagree because they know me pretty well. I'm an open book on YouTube.
Sure. Well, cool. That's great. Now I'll put your chart up here. Let me go back to the entire screen, and I'll show you a couple of things that I noticed. Now, usually I spend about 40 minutes when I go into a reading, and I did spend some time on you last night before because I'm busy. This is Jason's physical, you could say, this is called Vedic astrology. And just so everybody knows,
you'll have to present it on the bottom of the screen.
Oh, I didn't present? Okay, hold on a minute. Let me go do that.
I've never seen Vedic.
I thought that I had it up there. Let me see. Entire screen. I did select that before. But anyways, there we go. Am I presenting now?
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, now I see it. Okay, this is Jason's Vedic astrology. Now, Vedic astrology is kind of a pop term. Vedic, actually, a friend of mine who just passed away, Chakrapani, he's probably the guy in the 60s who coined this phrase. He said, Americans are never going to know what Jyotisha means, so we'll call it Vedic astrology. So Vedic astrology is a pop term. Its real name in the ancient world of Tamil and Sanskrit and Dravidian was Jyotisha. Jyotisha means the science of the light of the soul. And what's interesting about this is, Jason, if we had a laser, I rectified.
You might have hit the wrong button, Jeff, because you just checked out. He'll be back. Jeff, you checked out.
Am I there now?
Oh no, we can hear you. We just can't see you.
Oh, okay. I don't know why you can't see me. Let's see.
Maybe your camera turned off again.
You can't see me, but can you see the screen?
Oh no, we can see the screen.
Okay, good. That's all that matters. Yeah, it's probably the camera timed out. Okay, so this is your chart. I rectified you to 12/04/22. You told me you were born in a bathtub. And what I did is I actually read your energy. I said, when did Jason draw first breath? Because breath is synonymous with spirit. Try not taking a breath for a little while. You're not going to be around too long. So the breath is synonymous with spirit. And of course, when we exit the body, the breath certainly is one thing that stops along with the heartbeat. So if I'm right, and I hope I am, I humbly submit, I'm not God and I'm never going to be, but I did get that you were born at 12/04/22. And if that's the case, there's an angel that rules the eastern horizon. And these are always very interesting. You were born in the 10th degree of Virgo. See, if we had a time machine and we went back in time to your exact month, day, year of birth at exactly 12/04/22 in Spring, Texas, at that longitude and latitude of the Earth, and shot a laser out into deep space, this would have been the Eastern Horizon's degree in the sidereal system. See, so you're in the 10th degree. We round up from 0 to 1 is the first degree, from 9 to 10 is the 10th degree. So that is the 10th degree of sidereal Virgo. And this is really cool because this is that you're going to like this. The angel that rule this is like a sigil in a cave seated on a tripod beneath which there's a cloud of smoke. And it's almost like an intuitive Delphi kind of energy. And it denotes one who will not be controlled. You're not going to go with the natural world. Do you think that fits, Jason? I think it does. And this is interesting. I haven't seen this degree before. And what's interesting is you see the actions and operations of nature in contrast to men of the world. In other words, you see creation, not humans' creations, as the reality. And I think that really fits you. Wow, this is absolutely accurate. So what's interesting is it has a real divinity to it. It gives you a kind of a direct manifestation to divine channels of knowledge. And it's also very respectful of God and creation. And somewhere in your soul, you know that those laws cannot be changed and that man is in contrast to nature by its programming. Do you think that fits, Jason? I think it does. And see, here's another thing. What I was telling you is if we come along here, and I got everything right? June 9th.
I think you hear.
Hold on a minute. Yeah, I changed it over. We got something wrong here. Hang on here. 1973. Okay, no wonder why. Damn, something was wrong. Oh, I was hoping that would be because this is your chart. I remember
this chart right here. So this chart that you're showing me, this is in Francis Barrett, 1801, the Magus. He spends a lot of time breaking down this chart. I never really paid much attention to it, but I own the book. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, the problem with the Magus is that's a direct plagiarism of the 3 books of occult philosophy from.
I have that one too, Henry Cornelius
That's
Agrippa.
A better one. That's right, yeah. Agrippa. And do you have the version that Tyson translated? Because that's the best one.
I don't know who the translator is, but I've told my community all about Henry Cornelius Agrippa. He was one of my first loves when I was studying the occult.
Absolutely. And I can tell you that what's so interesting is that about that is John Tridemus. See, this is the same thing that happened with what's his name? Secret Teachings of All Ages, which was Manly P. Hall, who I had the chance to meet Manly before he died. He was back in the 80s. He was pretty old then. But he was a big dude, man. I'll tell you that. That dude was like 6'4".
I was invited last year to go speak before the Manly P. Hall Society.
Oh, awesome. Go.
I believe that
they just redid the place. They just redid it.
San Diego.
I was just over there not too long ago. But Manly died a very mysterious death in the, I think it was the late 80s, early 90s. And he was a cool guy. But see, the same thing happened to Manly Hall that happened to Henry Cornelius Agrippa. Agrippa was bequeathed all that knowledge by John Tridemus. And that was, again, a very ancient secret society dumping all this knowledge upon his lap. And he wrote the 3 books of occult philosophy. The same thing happened to Manly P. Hall back in the early 20s. He was speaking at a church, and the Rosicrucians and another secret society came up to him and says, "We're going to give you all this information. You're going to publish this book." And that's the Secret Teachings of All Ages. So pretty cool stuff. So I noticed you had that in your intro. But anyways, sorry, I had that wrong. That's interesting. I wonder if there was some kind of Freudian slip there by me doing that, because that other degree, let me see what this degree is. It was very interesting. That really fits you. And again, that was a difference of 900 years. Who knows? Maybe there's something to that. There's something to synchronicity that happens, that I've often made mistakes and then found later those mistakes were something that was a message. So, according to this, you're in the 10th degree of sidereal Leo. Interesting. This one is different. This is a lot different. And again, we do have everything right? 6/9/73. Yeah.
Yeah,
Spring,
just
Texas.
go ahead. Yeah, just go ahead. That's 12:04 in the afternoon, right?
Right. 12:04:22. I have you 22 seconds after, because seconds do matter, because the eastern horizon actually changes 15 minutes of arc every clock minute. So yeah, pretty fast. So it's pretty fast. Anyways, long story short, because every 4 minutes it'll change 1 degree. So if you divide a degree into 4 segments, you'll get 15 minutes of arc each: 15, 30, 45, and 1. So anyways, back to this. Wow, this is totally different. This denotes one who has a lot of bravery and is fearless of anything that's going to come after you.
Man, that's the catchphrase of my whole channel. Break free or die trying. This is in all my videos. Break free or die trying.
See, these are, it's interesting because this is a very noble degree. It's actually a soldier rescuing people from darkness on the field of the battle of life. So that's, again, I wonder, it's really interesting why that Freudian slip came of 1073. You might have been born that long ago. See,
it's okay. This new chart, it actually matches me more than you know. Listen,
well, I'll tell you why.
I've got stories of rescuing people in my past. My community already knows the stories.
Yeah, that really is accurate. Well, see, this is Leo on the eastern right. So everybody knows in Vedic astrology, you got to rotate the chart. This is sunrise, this is noon, over here is sunset, and over here is midnight. And the trines are 1, 5, and 9. So astrology is the science of unfolding you could say, time and karma being synchronized. So it's, again, if you go back to that diagram that I had up earlier, this is very, very important, because these diagrams show literally that there is no time. Saturn seems to be the portal that time comports through. This is why Saturn is the karmic planet. It may be the reason we were born. It's actually attaching us to different portions of not only our own soul root outside of time, but the other fragments to the soul root. And I think there's a lot more truth to that than we know. See, you have the Lord of the Ascendant in the 10th house conjunct Saturn, aspected by Mars. That's what I was telling you earlier, because that's why I questioned that chart for a minute. You have a triple Raj Yoga in the 10th house. Why? The Lord of the Ascendant, which is just a fancy word astrologers use, that means the planet that's ruling the Eastern Horizon constellation is in the 10th house, plus the Lord of the 7th is Saturn, and the Lord of the 4th is Mars. So that creates a very powerful, what they call combination, also known as a Raj Yoga. Anytime you have a planet ruling an angle or a trine in an angle, as an extremely powerful yoga. And see up here, this is called a 9th harmonic chart. See, numerology is all over the ancient astrology. It's all just extremely complex numerology. And that Navamsha right there that I'm tracing is what we call a 9th harmonic chart, which means in plain English that it is, see, 9 equals spiritual completion on the physical plane. So any planet that's in a sign, you look at its 9th division. See, your Saturn is in the 9th division of sidereal Virgo, which is, again, in an angle. So it's very powerful. Yeah. Boy, your dad, he worked hard, didn't he? What did your dad do?
It depends on which dad you're talking about.
Yeah, he had a hard life. Your dad had a tough life, man. Your birth father.
My biological father, in fact, did have a tough life.
Really tough life.
My adopted dad, he's a hard worker too. He worked 16-hour days, but he loved his work. And he would have never told you it was work, because he really enjoyed what he did. But he was always gone working, traveled a lot too.
See, now how would I get that? Because the sun is indicative of the father. The moon is the mother. See, interesting. Your mom was a cool lady. She was smart. What'd she do?
Again, it all depends on which mother you're talking. You talking about my biological mother?
Biological. See,
Okay,
and also,
I'm adopted. I'm adopted. So when you
yeah.
say that, my biological mother was 16 years old when she had me. She passed away with muscular dystrophy last year, and
Wow. Sorry to hear
she's
that.
not had a good life. She's been in
Yeah.
bed for more than 50% of her life.
She was a smart lady, though.
She pretty much did my prison sentence with me because
Wow.
she just did it. She just did it from the comfort of her own bedroom.
Yeah, yeah. Well, see, your biological father, something really traumatic happened to you right around 4 years old, 3.5, 4 years old. What happened there?
I was on the streets and I was adopted. I was taken in by the state,
I'll
and
bet.
I was taken in by the state. I went through about 4 or 5. I went through 4 or 5 like foster homes, and I tore them all up because I was looking for my baby sister Michelle. And then when they realized that the adoption agency had separated us, they had done, whoever it was, caseworker, did the investigations and then reunited me with my sister, and I was adopted by the Bashirs.
Wow, that's wild. Yeah, see, it shows right here. Now, how am I getting that? You can see the sun is at 25 degrees, 15 minutes of arc. Well, that would have joined Saturn, which would have been very tough for you right at about 4 years, just short of between 4 and 5 years old. You went through hell because, see, that was the conjunction by progression. See, the Earth is a time machine. It really is. It's all about time. If you look here, I'll show you a diagram that's really valuable. And this one here, I always love this little diagram here. These are the lunar mansions that surround the Earth. They're known as the, here, let me find the other one I want to show you here. Yeah, here it is. This is a very important diagram. See, the ancients knew, see, our Earth sits at an axial tilt at about 23 degrees 44 minutes. Even though the magnetics has moved so far, we seem to be sitting at that. And because of that, we get our seasons as we go around the sun. Well, when the sun and the moon and the earth align, we get eclipses. Eclipses are very important because the North Node, which is this is where the dragon legend comes from. The North Node is known as the head of the dragon, or Rahu. And Shakespeare, the great playwright, was absolutely correct. The Earth is a time machine. It's a theater, and we're all the actors playing the movie. And our perception of reality is the moon's north node. That's why many of your Tibetan lamas taught their students, this is Maya, this is time, this is the Kala Purusha of this physical world, which means we're all living in a movie. It's like a simulacron, like you're saying. Well, notice K2 is the exit out of the theater. It is the tail of the dragon. It is the liberation, also known as moksha, which separates us from the physical bondages of reincarnation in this particular world. I call it the escape from Alcatraz hatch right there. That's the K2. And it's very accurate. So what's important is you have to look at, where do these things lie in the chart? Well, look at your chart. All your planets are you were born during a Kalasarpa yoga broken by the moon. See, all your planets are on this side of the little horseshoes known as the nodes, the eclipse points. See, that's K2, that's Rahu in the birth chart. Everybody has certain configurations. And the fact that all your planets are in between that on this side, and they're all moving towards K2, which means liberation of moksha or karma. Only thing breaking it is the moon. And so you can't go by Uranus. I just happen to have Uranus turned on because I was showing people something earlier. So if we turn Uranus off, Vedic astrologers only use Saturn in, because that's where time and karma starts. Not that Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto and all the asteroids don't have an effect, but when you look at Naadi astrology, you only look at Saturn in, because that's where the perception of reality of time starts. So the moon broke it. Your mother, your birth mother, she was actually the blessing on your soul to break the karmas. You were with dad 2 lifetimes back, and it really sucked. It was really bad. See, if you look at K2, K2 is the karmic control planet, and the sign before it is the son and the father. So that's an indication you were definitely, that wasn't your first barbecue with dad. And I can tell you that it's very likely that it was very almost like slavery is what it looks like. It was really,
Listen,
really.
listen, I'm gonna tell you something very interesting. My biological father, I haven't seen him since I was like 9 or 10, but because I knew him even after I was adopted. He had visited a few times, but what's really interesting is that I have literally fulfilled everything that he attempted and never did. He went to prison. He's an ex-con. He went to prison, and he also wrote books, but he could never get published. I went to prison and I got my first 4 legitimate publishing contracts as a prisoner, and then I got like 9 more after I was released.
That's cool, man. What did they put you in prison for?
I went to prison at age 17 years old because me and a guy carjacked a girl and it ended up turning into a sexual assault. And I took her to the police. I took her to the police station, wrote a full statement against myself, and it's really weird that you saw that in the astrology, that one of my characteristics is to save people.
Yeah, to save people.
This happened in multiple times.
That's all over this chart. And I actually think that mistake we had at 1073 might have been a key ancient life, because I done this before. Well, accidentally do something, and it's a Freudian subconscious thing. And that one shows that you were actually some kind of a really powerful person exposed to the mystical arts, is what I would say. Yeah. Which would really win against society. See, this yoga in your chart, see Mars aspects, look at how close that is. Mars is at 26 degrees, 6 minutes of arc, and Saturn is at 29:55. That's why, see, these over here are called karakas. And what karaka means, that's just a fancy word for indicators. And what they do is they arrange the planets in zodiacal degrees. The highest planet becomes the Atma karaka. Atma means soul, and karaka means root indicator. So your soul root indicator is Saturn, clearly an old soul. There's no question about it. And I could tell you that the next one down is Mars. That's called the Amatea Karka. And if you just eyeball this chart, every single of the 7 planets go down in hierarchical order. Like Venus is going to be your lowest degree planet. See, it's at 11 degrees, 19 minutes. So forget Trinity, Neo, and Morpheus. You're dealing here with a matrix of the soul. These angels wait until we exit mom's womb, and that first breath starts exactly when the spirit, psyche, and soul is concretized to the body. Look at how powerful your sun is. See, Shad means sixth, Bala means strength. That's all it means. So once you get past all this stuff, it's pretty simple. So Shad Bala means the quantitative 6 strengths that are in your birth chart. Well, look at your sun. You're not ringing the bell. You're putting a dent in it. That thing's at 168. So I don't care how crazy the world got. You're a tough son of a bitch. You're gonna be able to survive, because see, the Lord of the Ascendant is so strong in the 10th house. So you're not going to be put down easy. You're probably pretty tough in prison too.
Oh, I'm still a scrapper. I'm always calling people out on YouTube for their bullshit.
No, you're a scrapper. There's no doubt about it. A lot of people act tough. You actually are. See, that's Lord of the Ascendant in the 10th. It's interesting. He's totally different than you, but Donald Trump has Mars in the Ascendant, and just like you, he's got the Lord of the Ascendant in the 10th. Now, not that I'm here getting into politics, but whether you like Trump or hate Trump, he's a tough son of a bitch. I mean, he gets shot in the ear and he stands up and says, fight, fight, fight. So you got that same kind of energy in this chart, much different than him. But same kind of, anytime the ruler of the ascendant, they actually call it the Lagna Lord. See, in Vedic and Naadi astrology, Lagna is a very interesting word. Its etymology becomes where spirit gets concretized into matter. Isn't this interesting? So again, astrologers spend too much time looking at astrology only, where what I loved about Naadi and Vedic astrology is it looks at the journey of the soul in time. It's the synchronization of time and karma. So it's not us. And see, the other thing you got going on, buddy, now this is even cooler. Watch this. Now make sure we get that one right, because see, what happened is I had to switch computers on to get on the show because it wasn't letting me in on the other one. So watch, this is your birth chart I got everything right here. Yeah, 6973 1004. Yep, we're good. So watch this. Okay, if we look right now as we speak, you are 51 years old, 3 months and 8 days old. I'm not that smart. You can see the computer figures it out for me right there. So here's what's cool. This, now you talk about intelligence. The Egyptians in 300 probably BC, and this is only what we know, because you got to remember all these manuscripts the PhDs run around and talk about. You know what we call PhD, don't you?
I'm listening.
Piled high and deep. That's what Manly P. Hall told me one day.
Yeah.
I almost fell off the chair. I walked into Manly P. Hall's office, right? And he actually gave me a secret teachings of all ages for $40. Those things are like $300 now, $350 for the big one. And we were talking, and he's the one that told me that phrase. He said, "Yep, PhD means piled high and deep." He said, "Not that they're not smart, and they are. You can't get a PhD easy, and I don't mean to disrespect anybody with their PhD, but human intelligence is more important than anything, and you don't need a degree for that one." Anyways, long story short, back to you. And why I brought that up is because the Egyptians and the Chaldeans knew that the earth was a time machine. Now, these people did this without slide rules, calculators, or computers. When I click secondary progressions, guess what? And I say, okay, that is where every single planet was 51 days after you were born. So this is your birth chart on the inner wheel here where my cursor is going. I hope everybody can see that. This outer wheel is exactly where every single planet was 51 and a third days after you were born, because that's how old you were. And these people were figuring this stuff out and calculating this stuff. There's no way they could have figured this out without either angelic or extraterrestrial interaction. There's no way, because it's far too complex. I know I used to, my mother and I were trying to calculate this stuff BC, before computers, back in the 70s. And believe me, your eyeballs cross when you do the calculations to figure out where everything was 51 and a third days later, or whatever age someone was. And the computer does it in the click of a button. So here's what's important for you. This guy right here that I'm tracing is what we call the secondary progressed moon. And what's fascinating about that is that takes 28 and a half years to go around everybody's birth chart. Well, guess what? Each day equals a year. So this is a cycle. So you were born with the moon here. So the first 28 and a half years, it went to right there. Now you're in this, again, you're in your 50s. So it's right here. When you turn 58, it's going to be almost right back to the moon, you see, or very close. See, it's not exact because the moon's orbit is elliptical, and this computer actually calculates all this stuff. Well, here's what's important. The moon moves 1 degree per month, and it's in the 12th house right now. You just had a huge breakthrough and awakening, and that would have happened to you right around the end of the scamdemic. Did I say scam? I meant planned. I meant pandemic. I'm sorry. Those Freudian slips are so bad with me. Yeah, but anyway, right about there, July of 2023, you had a new progressed moon. It might have been right at the end of June, actually. See, the sun went through the moon. The sun is the seed. All the astronomers run around out there. Well, the suns are, nuclear, or they're fission or fusion. And a lot of quantum physicists are saying, we don't know what the suns are. Maybe they're plasma. Maybe they're electric. You've heard of the electric universe theory. And I think they're portals to the lower, they're portals. That's why they're so powerful and bright, is because they're shining down all this creational, exceedingly complex soul force energies through the stars. And there's a lot of ancient lore to that too. So whenever the sun joins the moon, that is a new beginning. And I don't know what happened to you in the summer of 2023, which would have been last year, but that was pretty significant. When you say, did you notice anything?
Oh yeah, I did. I did 2 things. Oh, that's when I did some major traveling, but at the same time I was traveling, I got real aggressive on my call outs. I was calling out PhD level individuals as well to back up theories that I disagree with. I was famous authors like Graham Hancock, famous grifters like Billy Carson. I was calling them all out, trying to come to the table. Jimmy Corsetti, Matt LaCroix, because I have a lot of information. When I research other people's material, I look through their bibliographies to make sure that it's not an accident that they're literally deceiving the public. Because if your bibliography actually cites books that have the correct information and that you've come across the correct information, but you're putting out that BS anyway, I'm gonna call you out to debate. So this is what I did, and at the exact same time, I also launched Archaix TV, and I also launched even bigger. I also launched, that was all July last year. I also launched Archaix 2.0, where I took my community to the next level in my calendrical studies. Yeah.
Now, let me show you something that's about to happen to you. Notice up here at the far right, see, this is a time tool. If you guys look way at the upper right-hand side of the screen, remember, astrology is the science of time in the physical world. That's all it is. And what's interesting is when you hit the clock, notice that moon jumps right here. Well, what's about to happen to you, my friend, right around the corner, notice that moon is moving towards that line. Now, we're looking at a chart that is what we call tropical astrology, which is different than sidereal. This is not the same as the Vedic. So this is sunrise over here. This is noon up here. This is sunset over here. And this is midnight. So the ascendant is extremely important. You can see the 12 houses here. There's that number 12 again. Well, what's interesting is the moon is crossing the ascendant when? April of next year. What does that mean to Jason Brashears? I could tell you this is a new chapter of life beginning, and it's really good. This is where an old chapter begins to close and a new one opens up and new ink on the page gets written. So you're likely to find a lot of expansion in your life is going to happen. And notice the progressed moon will go to a conjunction of Venus several months later. You can see right there. See how it just is passing on the other side of Venus. We could sit here all day, and I do this in readings all the time for people. The first thing I look at is the secondary progressed moon and the doshas you're in. See, doshas are time lords, and they grasp the aura. See, these are called the lunar mansions time lords, known as doshas. And you are currently in a Saturn major period. You can see right here, it says Maha Dosha. See, you dropped into that at 45 years old. You will remain into that until 64. And when you turn 64, you're really going to hit the moon here, because then you hit 17 years of Mercury. See, Maha means major, Dosha means time. That's all it means. It's real simple. So you're going to hit a Mercury major period from 64 to 81. When you turn 81, you're going to hit K2, which is the completion for you. See, you were at 11 years old. Man, your childhood was crazy, buddy. Man, look at this. You hit a Mars major period from 4 years old to 11. Oh, man, you went through some shit, buddy. Wow. Whew. Yeah, I can see why you were on the streets and you had the tumultuous early childhood that you did. But see, you were built for it. You're tough. You're tough. Lord of the Ascendant in the midheaven. You know, a lot of people act tough. You actually are. And you've got that Saturn conjuncted. See, it's a little harder to see. This is the Southern Indian chart here that I'm tracing. That's used in Naadi astrology, which is really profound stuff. Really, really profound. And here, I actually did your Naadi astrology. I'll show you here. I think I still have it up some darn place. Where is it? Hang on, hold on a minute. Got to find it here. Oh, it's probably over here. No, it's in this thing here. It's somewhere in here. I did your Naadi astrology. I just don't know where the heck I put it. Yeah, for some reason it's not showing up. But anyways, we don't need to get into that because it's kind of heady to get into. But actually, I do have it. Look at that, Astrologics right there. That is Jason's Naadi astrology. Now, this might look like super complex. It's actually not. Let me demystify you this. This is his birth chart tracing around this box. These are the elements of earth, air, fire, and water, which rule the four archangels of creation: earth, air, fire, and water, which is Archangel Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Oriel. And spirit is manifest through those four archangels into the physical world. And this is the transits out here. See, you've also got Jupiter transiting your midheaven. See, it's going over your sun and your Saturn, the Dosha Lord. So this is a good time for you. It's a really good time for you to be out there moving stuff up. The other thing is we look at the progressions. See, you were born with Jupiter retrograde. Yeah, there is no doubt, buddy. You were born with Jupiter retrograde. What is Saturn? Saturn was direct with the sun. Yeah, you got a lot of karma with that birth father that needed to be dissipated. Yeah, he had a tough life, man. He had a really tough life. Yeah, it was not easy on him. The birth father, I'm speaking about. Anybody who would have played your father takes on the role of the son. It was going to be tough for them. That's just the way it is. And your mom too, but she was a smart lady. See, she's in the Earth trine with Jupiter. She had a blessing on her soul. Even though it was tough for her, she had a real blessing on her soul. You had a lot to do with releasing that karma on both you and her. It's interesting. Your dad, I don't want to say anything negative, but he might go to this barbecue a few more times before that gets released.
You would never surprise me. I know quite a bit about my biological father. You would not surprise me if you were to see something nefarious. Wouldn't even surprise me.
Well, he's going to come back, it shows, another time or two. Again, I always say the Earth is a soul cauldron. See, what these are, this looks really complex, and it's not. These are the years of Jupiter's progression. See, because Jupiter was backwards, the first 4.6 years of life, you had Jupiter over Rahu. Yeah, your early childhood was just really hard, man. Wow. Wow, you were a tough little dude, man. I'll tell you that. Anyways, then from 4 to 16, it was here. You'll notice these go forward in 12-year increments because that's what we call the synodic cycle. That's a fancy word that just means that Jupiter has a 12-year orbital cycle. That's all it is. It's really simple once you get this stuff. So these are years of your life. So right now, you are between 40.6 years old to 52.6. You're here. Here's what's really cool. Your Jupiter from 52 to 64 for 12 years is going to sit over your midheaven on your sun and your Saturn. Plain English, glad you started your channel because you're going to be successful, buddy. I can tell you that right now. That is definitely Popeye on spinach. You're going to get some real traction there. Yeah. See, from 52 and a half all the way to 64, that Sun and Saturn yoga, which is Lord of the Ascendant, is all excited. Yeah. See, that activates what we call the Earth trine. See, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn are the Earth trine. So yeah, you're going to be cooking here. See, this it's all time. It's all this stuff is the look of time. And then the other cool thing is, this is something I spent a lot of time on, and this is so accurate, it's creepy, is location astrology. Location astrology is the science of looking at what energies do you have where. You would do really well. See, you have a sun on the midheaven line running right through the District of Criminals, also known as Washington, D.C., down through the Virginia and North Carolina area. See, that is an extremely powerful energy. It goes through upper state New York, too. Not that you got to go there. I'm just saying that is one powerful place. And if you went down into the old South America, that's going to run right down through this area of Columbia.
So hold on. Go back up. That line goes right through Virginia Beach. Next week, I'm giving a powerful speech there.
Excellent place for you. Excellent place for you. See, everybody's going to have something different. See, sun on the midheaven gives you power, respect, and authority. It's very, very good. You also got a Mars descending line. Watch those a little bit. But the good news is, see, how these work is like light and sound. If you notice up here at the upper left, that is latitude. This is longitude. And this is only for you, Jason. Anyone else's birth time is going to be totally different. See, right there, you can see where I'm reading this. At 76 West 1737, you have a sun on the midheaven line. What does that mean? That's Popeye on spinach. That is a really powerful place for you to be. I would tell you set up an organization there or do whatever you want. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do, but that's a really powerful place for you. Extremely. You're probably really going to do well there. And what I see, this is the natal chart. The natal means it's your birth chart. So once you get past all these fancy terms, it's not that complex. But this is a really good spot for you. See, you have a Neptune line running right through New Orleans. And then you have all these horizontal lines, which are called latitude crossings. And they're your own personal ley line. Now, the Earth has ley lines, but so does each individual. In fact, you can traverse the globe on this thing. It's really fun. You can look at Europe. You can look at, Egypt, anywhere you want to go. Yeah, Egypt's okay for you. You got a Saturn descending line, not crazy, but you do have a moon midheaven line. And look at through India, excellent for you. You have a Jupiter ascending line. So you can traverse the globe with this thing.
So wait a minute, go back to Texas, because explain to me what I'm seeing here. I don't see anything that's longitudinal, but on the latitude,
you don't have any.
I see two of them close to Houston.
That's right. And those are latitude crossings, right? So you're down in that area. So if we come down here, see, you have a node Mars line.
Here's what's really strange. You see where this line is north of Houston?
Yeah, by Beaumont, right there.
Okay, that line and the line above it, I've lived almost my entire life just right here, even in the prisons that I was located in.
Yeah, that's a tough spot. You probably had a rough spot in there because, see, that's a Mars node line cutting right through Beaumont and just south of Austin. The real way to do this is GPS. See here, watch. I'll show you.
Yeah, I was almost born on that line.
Wow. Now, that's a tough spot, bud. That's
30 degrees north latitude right there. That line, I can tell by looking at the geography, that's really close to 30 degrees north latitude.
Yeah, see, now you get some more detail here. See, watch.
Yeah.
So, that's at 30 degrees, 5 minutes. You're right on. 30 degrees, 5 minutes, 01. See where I'm reading that at the upper left-hand corner?
Yeah, I say I can look at geography and tell you longitude and latitude pretty good. There's Conroe, Texas, and there I am right there in Willis, Texas. That's where I am right now.
Wow, cool.
Right there to the north of that.
Yep. And see, that is an intense line. That's Mars in the node. So the node, see the little horseshoes, those are the eclipse points. And it's a very aggressive place. Up here, you've got a Mars-Mercury line running right through Jasper, Trinity, Madisonville, all that, So that is very intellectual stimulating. See, Mercury is logic and Mars is force. And, a lot of people say, Jeff, show me the best place to go live. And I always say,
I need to stop you here because you're blowing my mind, man. You just said that line represents something intellectually stimulating.
Oh, yeah, very. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me tell you what else is on that line. You can't see it on this map, but near that line is a place called Lovelady, Texas, where the East Ham prison is, famous for Bonnie and Clyde. It's going to be near. It's going to be very near this line because it's north of Huntsville and north of Livingston.
Well, I'll bet you wrote books on that one.
I wrote most of my books there, and I had access to books that were already old in the days of Bonnie and Clyde. I had access to those old libraries.
Oh, that's cool. That's totally cool. But I do a lot. I have a lot of celebrity clients over the years, and a lot of them are writers and producers. And they'll say to me, I got writer's block. I got this. I got that. Well, I said, go jump on a Mars-Mercury line, Jupiter-Mercury line. I have a lot of RVers too. They'll retire and they do what we call line jumping. And amazing stuff. Amazing. See, and another thing you got to be careful of. This is what we call the major aspects. Now watch, you're going to see something look like spaghetti when I turn on the aspects. See, those are geometric aspects of squares and trines. And wherever you see a square, that's always challenging you. Wherever you see a triangle, so you got a Pluto trining the midheaven here, right over in the center of Texas by San Antonio. Over here, you've got a Venus trine the descendant. See, the MC nomenclature, it's a fancy word that just means career. That's all it means. It's median coli. It means this aspect's your personal midheaven. This is the descendant, which is partnerships and relationships. So when I do readings, I give people videos and they do a quick class and they got it. So what's important is to determine that. Plus, you also have something called midpoints. And midpoints are literally, just like it sounds, if you take two of your birth chart planets, you find the point in the middle, and this is placing it on a map. And you can see you've also got a Uranus node line and a Jupiter sun running right along here. The dimensions of these, midpoints only go about 35 miles either side of the line. I always say, when you get right on any of these lines, including the latitude crossings, that's like going to a concert and standing in front of the band with your pant legs vibrating. So 10 miles north or south of the latitude crossings is the front row of the concert hall. 20 is like the back of the concert hall. 30 is off the radar screen. So they're very narrow. You got to get right on them. That's why you look at the latitude up here at the left. Now, longitude is east and west, obviously. And when you get right on the longitude of a planet, they are very powerful. These are midpoints. See, if I turn those off, this is why you said, well, it doesn't look like I have anything over Texas. Yes, you do. You got midpoints and aspects. Your actual planets, which are the most powerful, are only, believe it or not, out on the coast. And you got one here right through the land of Elvis, Memphis, Tennessee. So you got a really good one up here. This is that sun on the midheaven. Very powerful. Very, very powerful.
And that's crazy. I'm about to be there next week in Virginia Beach.
You should feel it, bud. You'll feel like Popeye on spinach there. And you'll get respected too, because that's a sun midheaven. See, the sun always gives life force energy. I've actually had doctors who said to me, Jeff, I'm dying. Where can I go to heal up? Or people who just say, I'm really sick. I always tell them, go plant yourself on a sun line. Immediately, the blood work starts coming back better. They start feeling more powerful. I mean, it can really make a big difference. And I had one doctor, he measured his PSAs with prostate cancer. They dropped out of the sky when he went on a sun ascending line. See, the midheaven, which is the MC, is the strongest. Now, you'll have 4 of these. Every person on the planet has 4 of these. See, your next one is going to be way the heck over here, running through Upper Egypt. That's a sun.
What the hell? You're not talking about Great Pyramid area. That's the Great Pyramid. Yeah, that's the Delta Goshen area right there.
Yeah, really good spot for you. The next one you're going to have is going to be way over here, probably in Southeast Asia or somewhere. Where the hell is it? Yeah, yours is going to be out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, you got a sun ascending line running, I guess it would be to the east of New Zealand. So that hits the ocean out there, but not too far from Society Islands, but a ways. See, these planets, when you get right on them, that's literally like standing in front of the band with your pant legs vibrating. Very, very powerful. You got a lot of amazing energies down here through Uruguay. You got a Uranus ascending line here through Upper Brazil. See, Sun, Jupiter, and Venus lines are always your best, and Mercury lines are really good too. And moon lines are very emotional. See, each one, that's why everybody says, oh, Jeff, show me the best place. And I say, well, there's a lot more flavors on the menu than best and good and bad and worse. You get very specific, like extremely specific. Like sun midheaven lines, they pick you up. It really supports respect. See, that runs right down here through Brazil, through Peru and Ecuador. So you got to really, now you got a Saturn midheaven line that brings structure, see, the down through Chile and all that. So if you head down here to meet the boys underneath Antarctica, everybody converges all down here. So it's very interesting how this matrix of astrology plays. Now, here's the other thing. You've got, this never changes everything that I'm showing you. Now, watch, I hit the wrong button. I'm on a different computer here. But you also have what we call transits and progressions. See, now you got something really cool about to come in. This is a transit. And what this is, here's a time tool here. Now watch, you can see this is today's date. I can go forward and backwards in different increments. See, everything's moving. These are because this is the transits over you. You're going to have a Uranus on the midheaven come right over your area all next year. Now you might say, well, what does that mean? Well, I love Uranus lines. They are very unusual and disruptive. If you look at the glyphs of the planets, they all come from 3 symbols: the sun, which is the life force energy and portal to creation, the moon, which is the crucible, and the cross, which is spirit manifest. And if you look at here, watch, I'll show you. If you take this diagram, this actually shows it quite well. And you could see here, if I could find a doggone thing, it is up here someplace. Where did I put it? Yeah, here, hang on. I got to view these things as icons or I can't recognize them. I'm on a different computer, so I had to set this up in order to do this today. For some reason, the StreamYard wouldn't bring me in. Yeah, well, here, this works. So just to show you, see, dad puts the seed in mom's womb. Farmer puts the seed in the ground. So the sun is indicative of the spiritual portal of the seed. The moon is the crucible where it concretizes spirit, just like the earth. You could throw a seed that's 80, 100 years old into the ground and it starts growing. And then the earth is where spirit manifests, which is the cross. Well, why am I telling you all that? Well, if you look back here at your location astrology, you can see Uranus is the two crescents of the moon bent outwards with the cross in the middle over the sun. They're all like that. Look at Saturn's karma, the cross over the crescent of the moon. Neptune, the portal between the subconscious, conscious mind, is the crescent of the moon bent upwards over the cross. You see what I'm saying? So they're all combinations of the building blocks of creation. And it really is. It's the science of time, is all it is. And you're going to have this Uranus line coming over the top of you for about the next year and a half, 2 years. See how it goes backwards and forward? That's called retrogradation. This never stops, Jason, until the fat or skinny lady sings, whichever one you get. I ain't getting anybody. I canceled them all. I'm just going to get out of here. But the bottom line is, this is cool stuff because, see, you've got progressions, transits, and primary directions. See, you got a lot of cool stuff coming in here soon. You're going to have a moon on the IC coming in. Are you in a relationship right now?
Yes.
Good. That's good. That's going to warm up the home and the family stuff right there because you got moon jumping in here over the next couple of years. See, by the summer of 27. What does that do? That makes the home life warm and fuzzy and important. You got a lot of energies coming in here. See, you're going to have Mercury, the moon's north node, Venus, and Pluto all rolling through your area over the next probably 10 years. See? That'll all complete. And each one will have its own, it's like hitting notes on a piano, that every one has its very specific energies. See, I give people detailed descriptions of all this in a report when I do readings so they can understand this stuff. So it's really amazing. But yeah, you got a lot of cool stuff going on here, and it's good. But I can tell you, those early years, you're lucky the angels made you as tough as you are, or you would have been quashed because.
Oh, my YouTube family knows.
Yeah, I mean, from 4 to 11, you're. I mean, man, you went through some tough stuff there. They were bouncing you all over the place. At 9 years old, see, you hit Mars K2. That's MA for Mars, KE for K2.
At 9 years old, I tried to climb. I did climb a tree in my backyard, and we had a 2-story Victorian roof type house. And I climbed a tree so high that in my 9-year-old hands, the top of the tree, I could wrap my hands around them. But I'm looking over a 2-story house with a 3rd-story like attic at the mailbox in the front yard. That's how high I am. And I'm swinging over the neighbor's yard and looking down on their swimming pool 3 stories down, and then the wind would swing me back. And I was just having fun until the tree branches under my feet broke. And, I free fell all the way down, landed on some wood and some rabbit poop and all that. And it was one of those examples in life that because I did not do my chores and clean all the rabbit poop up, I actually survived. And I was hospitalized.
Yeah. Yeah, it shows here right at about 11, 12 years old, man, you had some more stuff going on. Yeah, your early teenage. See, you were in Sarisate. See, Saturn is the karmic releaser, and it was going on the sign before the moon, the sign over the moon, and sign after the moon. See, that's tough stuff. Yeah. I almost didn't survive mine too, man. That was tough. Yeah. Yeah, we all go through it, don't we?
Yeah, man, it's all water under the bridge.
Yep, that's it. And it's all, what do they say? It builds character, right? Yeah. Yep. So
water under the bridge. That's all. Can you get your camera back on?
Yep, that's what I just did. I just kicked it back on. Yeah. There we go. We're coming back in right about now. Maybe not. Let's see here. Let's try it again. Let's see if that makes it come in.
Sometimes those settings default. You can You could
Oh,
actually.
that's why.
Hey,
Yeah, what happened is the StreamYard knocked it off. So
yeah, man.
yeah.
So like you have a vague resemblance, although it doesn't matter. You have a vague resemblance to one of my favorite actors of all time. You know, it's Ghostbusters. You know who I'm talking about. They killed him in the zombie movie.
Oh yeah, what was that? Bill Murray or something?
Yeah, Bill Murray. You ever seen the zombie movie where
Yeah.
he was pretending to be a zombie? They thought he was real and they killed him.
That's what they're doing to me. They're trying to kill me. That's it.
Yeah. Bill Murray's great. I love Bill Murray.
I'll tell you the thing that it really strikes me the most is something called interrogation astrology. Now, this proves that the matrix, I always say, forget Trinity, Neo, and Morpheus. The real matrix is our minds, which again, consciousness is not localized to the body. Astral travel, OBE, of course, everybody, that's a big buzzword now, out of body experience, NDEs, which are all true. And don't mean any disrespect, but I can tell you that consciousness, and this is what Dr. Carl Wicklund and many other advanced psychiatrists proved, does not stay in the body. Well, here's an interesting type of astrology people might not be familiar with. And a lot of Westerners know it as horary astrology. But one of my favorite astrologers was Dorotheus. He was a king in Egypt who was purported to have been somewhere around the 1st century AD. And I have his books. It's called absolutely amazing book. He, and of course, many people have heard of Ptolemy. Again, another Egyptian where everything was put into the Western world. And what is mentioned in there is something called interrogation astrology. In other words, you can ask a question and literally the Eastern horizon becomes you, the querent, not your birth chart. This is a chart cast for the moment in time you ask a question. I have thousands of these. I got exposed to this back in the early 80s, right at the beginning of the computer, programs coming out. And we would cast charts, and the Eastern horizon becomes whatever question is being asked, and whatever house, the 12 houses around the chart, is the subject matter. Like if it's money, if it's where's my cat, where's my dog, or health issues, or anything else. I can't give medical advices, but I can tell you can certainly see what root causes of energetic imbalances are. The big one is relationships. People ask me all the time, you think we'll stay together? Do you think I'll be with her or we'll break up? And the 7th house is always the partner. I have a lot of corporations that put me on retainer, and they'll call me up and say, hey, should we hire so-and-so as a new CEO? Or should we fire them? Or, is so-and-so going to be good for, whatever it is, product development or what have you, or sales, And that is the most fascinating type of astrology, because you can have somebody sitting on the other side of the world and ask a question. I just cast a chart. And this isn't my idea or innovation. I can go back thousands of years and show you stuff. One of the most prolific works was Guido Bonatti in Italy in the 11th century. He penned a book that's almost 1,700 pages, and that's before the printing press. That took a lot of work to make that one.
It took a lot of work to write all that. Yeah.
You bet, because now you're on papyrus, you're sitting there with a quill pen and ink, and the only way this could get done was the sultans and the kings and the pharaohs had the money to hire all these scribes and also scholars to do this stuff. And we actually can thank the Arabs a lot for the saving of much of the Egyptian astrology. And a lot of them were Jews too, that were in there as scholars from like the 4th century forward into about
I talk about that a lot on Archaix TV and right here on YouTube. The Jewish people were the only people at the turn of the millennium, when Rome was being very aggressive, that actually had representatives in their community that spoke every single language in Europe and the Mediterranean world. And they were used as couriers, they were used as bankers, exactly right. Postal, tax collectors, tax assessors, because of that. And they're also extremely, extremely thick in the publishing world, going all the way back to the days of Alexandria Library.
You bet. This is a critical translation here. This is Rabbi Ibn Ezra On elections. What are elections? I can't tell you how much I do stuff like people say to me, I can't sell my house, right? So what I'll do is I will do an election so that when the real estate contract expires, or if they're doing a new real estate election, I will literally give them the time to sign the contract and slide it across. Marriage elections. I cannot tell you how many of those I do. Electional astrology is picking an auspicious time to commence an act. Now, I'm not here telling anybody what to do, but if you've made up your mind to do something, like I have people getting elective surgeries all the time. You can't talk to a doctor about surgeries, though I have a lot of doctors who really have told me they can't believe when they follow procedures in surgeries that certain days it goes horrible. We said, we did everything right. I said, I know, look at the energy you did it on. Moon was opposing Mars or some horrible aspect. Other days, he said, we can't do anything wrong. It goes perfect. I said, yeah, the moon was trining Jupiter, or you had some positive aspects in the sky. That's electional astrology. This was written in the 1100s. And also, he talks about medical astrology. Interrogations is asking questions. It's very hard to learn this stuff, but once you do, it's so accurate, it's creepy. And he also did what I like about Ibn Israel's work. These are the translations. These are critical translations out of Israel. But he also wrote a number of other books that are stunning. And I don't know where I got it. All my books are stacked up. But the coolest thing about it was he had the sigils of the archangels in all the planets, the spirits, the intelligences. This is all stuff that's been so lost in modern astrology. You're literally looking at an interactive, angelic and demonic hierarchy. They actually have the demons, the archdemons in the planets. The planets are multidimensional switches in what we call time. And that's why if you listen to astrologers, you're going to hear, well, this planet's exalted, that one's debilitated, this is that, or squaring, opposite, all these geometries, like you were saying earlier. If you just assigned it to a matrix of energy, you would find it's so accurate, it's creepy.
Well, you definitely impressed me. I rarely allow people to out-talk me, but you've done a really good job. You're hey,
well,
Jeff,
don't be too impressed. Trust me,
Jeff,
we all know nothing.
People about everything. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you now, it's my own community can attest. It's when it comes to calendars, when it comes to ancient calendrical systems and different cultures and how they factor and view time and these amazing traditions that are attached to these belief systems. This is my forte, and we never even really touched on those topics in this presentation because it wasn't really relevant. But when it comes to being in the flow, because you know your material, you have definitely proven to me you know your material, because you really got into your flow as soon as we started talking about astrology. I'm not just talking about showing the charts. I'm talking about, I don't know anything about it, but what I can do is assess when somebody is being absolutely genuine, and I can tell they know their business. So I'm definitely gonna invite you back. I don't know what kind of experiments we could do in astrology and all that, but
yeah, we could have a lot of fun, man.
This has been an awesome presentation, and
thank you. Well, the more I get to know, the less I know. And
that's all of us. Yeah, that's all of us. But do we have all your links?
What's that?
I said, do we have all your links in the description box? Do you have more to give us? I didn't realize you provided so many services.
Yeah, well, the best place to get me is Jeff@jeffharman.com, and that's HARMAN.com, not Owen.
Yeah, so, don't make the mistake I made, guys. Yeah. Spell that name right.
At Jeff Harman. Yeah. The email is really a good way to go. Also, do check out my YouTube channel. It's Jeff Harman Astrologer, and it's on the YouTube. It's a kind of a new channel. And I love your audience and what you do. I've watched you many times, and I like where you're at. You don't care what anybody else thinks. You speak your mind, and that's how I am. You don't like me? Cancel my channel. I don't care, because I'm just trying to bring some truth out. And believe me, the more I get to know, the more humbled I am. We ain't smart enough to figure out creation, and that's why creation will always win over evil, because creation was where it all comes from.
Yeah, it's good. Hey, this is a ride.
Yeah,
just a ride.
exactly
This is
right.
just a ride, and right now this is just the meat suit I'm using right now. But
That's it.
yeah, man. You want to close out for a couple of minutes? I'm done. I'm really speechless. I'm about to go back and listen to it and screenshot all these little maps you showed, and look at
Yeah.
that. Check
Yeah,
that
well,
out.
sometimes what I do is I do readings on Zoom, and that's really the way to go because you get to record it on your own computer during readings, and then I'm actually have my annotation pen. I can circle it and it disappears, and you could really sometime I'll do that for you. We'll do a reading, and you'll enjoy it, and then we can really roll up our sleeves, and you can ask questions, and we can address specific concerns. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. You got some great stuff coming up with that progressed moon coming over your ascendant. I think when did I say it was? Yeah, next April. I mean, that's really big because you're not going to go to that barbecue again for another 28 and a half years. Isn't that wild that all the planets positions X amount of days after your birth is where everything was in years? In years. It's that we're in a time machine here. We are in a time machine.
We're on the inside of it.
Yeah, we're on the inside of it. That's right.
No
I
doubt.
call it the wash machine. We're all stuck on spin cycle, right?
Yeah, man. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and close out, hit this beautiful intro. You guys check out the links in the description box. I'm also gonna put them in the pinned comment as soon as I exit this video, so you guys can access the links a whole lot better. You guys know I rarely endorse anybody, so I'm very impressed with my guest today. And
thank you.
definitely check him out. And the movie lookalike as well has impressed me. So yeah.
Yeah.
But, all right, Jeff, I'm gonna go ahead and say goodbye.
You bet. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Jason. It was a really good time. I really enjoyed you.
Till next time.
You bet. Many blessings, bud. Okay.
All right, guys, that was a great guest. I'm very impressed. He was actually speaking faster than I'm able to cogitate and able to process what I was looking at because it required visuals. But you guys already know me. I'm very analytical. I'm going to get into it. I'm going to go check out those lines, those maps, and all that. It's very interesting to me. And the reason it was interesting to me is because those lines literally passed through various places where important events had unfolded in my life. Even the lines that I saw in New Mexico, over there in San Diego, I was looking at the map. Like, wow, I went through all that and all those places. That's crazy. So, having said that, check out the description box. Go look at his channel. Hey, give him a sub. And you want a personal reading, and you're able to make that happen. Listen, looks like he's the real deal. All three astrologers I've had, they've had very unique and different ways of looking at and basically reading from the field. And this is very impressive. So I'm going to hit this outro, and I will see you guys in a couple of days. I may release a video tomorrow, but it's not going to be live. I have something pretty intriguing. But as far as live videos go, I don't even know who my next guest is. I got to look. I got Big John loaded me up, and we have a few seats available. We really sold a lot of tickets to Virginia Beach. There's a few seats available. You guys can go in the description box and see that as well. Or any prior videos, you can get a ticket for that. I need to quit running my mouth. Just go ahead and hit this outro. If I can find it. I got way too many intros and outros. Here we go. Love you guys.